Hi, Harry Potter addict. Sup, Liz the Wiz, Teresa Trumbull, Lois, you're there, Vampira, Cat Jack. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I found a saxophone cover. And I found some sweet glasses too, which I'm not gonna wear the whole time.
You're great.
You can see like the ring light in them. Sarah Papta, Daniel Clout. Clout, that's how I say it because I'm German. I think that's how you say it in English too. Clout. This is fun. It's kind of fun. Ingiradi.
I'm pretty sure it's clarinet.
It's saxophone and clarinet and some other kind of wind instrument. I don't know what it is. Yeah, they're gonna give you nightmares. Ah. Okay, I can leave this running underneath the intro. Hey everybody, welcome to Conk's Corner with John Reedsley, aka me, John Voth. I'm reading this for a full hour to take your mind off things, to have some fun and interaction. I've never read the books. I've only seen 2 or 3 of the movies. Don't remember anything from them. I read all the comments afterwards, so no spoilers, no hints, nothing about anything that's coming up. I leave a little bit of interaction at the end, try to interact with you in the middle. I put all of these on YouTube, so if you want to, you can catch up there. Go to the link in my bio. And also, clap for the nurses. There are some nurses watching this on their break. They messaged me a very nice message, which I really appreciated. Alana's one of them. So yeah, you feel free to interact with them. I don't know if they're on it now, but they might be at some point. Okay, so where were we last time? We were, let's see here. Oh yeah, they found they thought the dead cat, there was a dead cat on the wall with very mysterious writing saying the Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air beware, written on the wall next to this dead cat, which was Mr. Filch's wife apparently, or maybe that's a joke, I don't know. Probably a joke. It would be bestiality, if not. But it ended up not being dead, but just, what's the word?
Petrified.
Petrified. So something happened. Thank you, it's a joke, okay. Jumper's not as nice as the last 2 times. Time to do laundry. Thanks, Dan. Thank you very much.
Hey, we're matching.
Yeah, we are matching. Mark's here. He is my Harry Potter advisor. Helps me out with pronunciation or anything that I missed out on. This is Dexter. Let's get started, shall we? Okay, we are now on page, if you're following along, page 108. Okay? Okay, here we go. At last Dumbledore straightened up. "She's not dead, Argus," he said softly. Lockhart stopped abruptly in the middle of counting the number of murders he had prevented.
"Not dead,"
choked Filch, looking through his fingers at Mrs. Norris.
"but why is she all stiff and frozen?"
"She has been petrified," said Dumbledore. "Ah, I thought so. But how, I cannot say."
"Ask him,"
shrieked Filch, turning his blotched and tear-stained face to Harry. "No second year could have done this," said Dumbledore firmly. "It would take dark magic of the most advanced—"
"He did it! He did it!"
Filch spat, his pouchy face purpling.
"You saw what he wrote on the wall. He found in my office. He knows I'm a...
Filch's face worked horribly.
He knows I'm a squib!"
he finished. "I never touched Mrs. Norris!" Also, what's a squib? Okay, I guess that's something new to come along. "I never touched Mrs. Norris," Harry said loudly, uncomfortably aware of everyone looking at him, including all the Lockharts on the walls. "And I don't even know what a squib is."
"Rubbish!"
Snarled Filch.
"He saw my quick spell letter."
If I might speak, Headmaster," said Snape from the shadows, and Harry's sense of foreboding increased. He was sure nothing Snape had to say was going to do him any good. "Potter and his friends may have simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. he said, a slight sneer curling his mouth, as though he doubted it. "But we do have a set of suspicious circumstances here. Why were they in the upstairs corridor at all? Why weren't they at the Halloween feast?" Harry, Ron, and Hermione all launched into an explanation about the Death Day party. "There were hundreds of ghosts. They'll tell you we were there." "But why not during the feast afterwards?" said Snape, his black eyes glittering in the candlelight. "Why go up to that corridor?" Harry, Ron, and Hermione looked at Harry. Because, Harry said, his heart thumping very fast. Something told him it would sound very far-fetched if he told him he had been led there by a bodiless voice no one but he could hear. "Because we were tired and wanted to go to bed," he said. "Without any supper," said Snape, a triumphant smile flickering across his gaunt face. "I don't think ghosts provided food fit for living people at their parties." "We weren't hungry," said Ron loudly, as his stomach gave a huge rumble. Snape's nasty smile widened. "I suggest, Headmaster, that Potter is not being entirely truthful," he said. "It might be a good idea if he were deprived of certain privileges until he is ready to tell the whole story. I personally feel he should be taken off the Gryffindor Quidditch team until he is ready to be honest."
"Really, Severus?"
said Professor McGonagall sharply.
"I see no reason to stop the boy playing Quidditch. This cut wasn't hit over the head with a broomstick. There's no evidence at all that Potter has done anything wrong."
Dumbledore was giving Harry a searching look. His twinkling light blue gaze made Harry feel as though he was being X-rayed.
Innocent until proven guilty, Severus," he said firmly.
Snape looked furious. So did Filch.
My cat has been petrified,
He shrieked, his eyes popping.
I want to see some punishment.
"We will be able to cure her, Argus,"
said Dumbledore patiently.
"Madam Sprout recently managed to procure some mandrakes. As soon as they have reached their full size, I will have a potion made which will revive Mrs. Norris."
"I'll make it," Lockhart butted in. I must have done it 100 times. I could whip up a mandrake restorative draught in my sleep." "Excuse me," said Snape icily, "but I believe I am the potions master at this school." There was a very awkward pause.
"You may go,"
Dumbledore said to Harry, Ron, and Hermione. McGonagall became Dumbledore, or what?
You said one of McGonagall's lines is Dumbledore.
Oh, shoot! Oh, I forgot. They went as quickly as they could without actually running. When they were up a floor from Lockhart's office, they turned into an empty classroom and closed the door quietly behind them. Harry squinted at his friends' darkened faces. "Do you think I should have told them about the voice I heard?" "No," said Ron without hesitation. "Hearing voices no one else can hear isn't a good sign, even in the wizarding world." Something in Ron's voice made Harry ask, "You do believe me, don't you?" "Of course I do," said Ron quickly. "But you must admit it's weird." "I know it's weird," said Harry. "The whole thing's weird. What was that writing on the wall about? The chamber has been opened. What's that supposed to mean?" "You know, it rings a sort of bell," said Ron slowly. "I think someone told me a story about a secret chamber at Hogwarts once. Might have been Bill. And what on earth's a squib?" said Harry. To his surprise, Ron stifled a snigger. "Well, it's not funny really, but as it's Filch," he said. "A squib is someone who was born into a wizarding family, but hasn't got any magic powers. Kind of the opposite of muggle-born wizards. But squibs are quite unusual. If Filch is trying to learn magic from a quick spell course, I reckon he must be a squib. It would explain a lot, like why he hates students so much." Ron gave a satisfied smile. "He's bitter." A clock chimed somewhere. "Midnight," said Harry. "We'd better get to bed before Snape comes along and tries to frame us for something else." Hey, Caitlin. Great job on the music video. For a few days, the school could talk of little but the attack on Mrs. Norris. Filch kept it fresh in everyone's minds by pacing the spot where she had been attacked, as though he thought the attacker might come back. Harry had seen him scrubbing the message on the wall with Mrs. Scour's all-purpose magical mess remover, but to no effect. The word still gleamed as brightly as ever on the stone. When Filch wasn't guarding the scene of the crime, he was skulking red-eyed through the corridors, lunging out at unsuspecting students and trying to put them in detention for things like
breathing loudly
and
looking happy.
what a grouch. Ginny Weasley seemed very disturbed by Mrs. Norris' fate. According to Ron, she was a great cat lover. But you hadn't really got to know Mrs. Norris, Ron told her bracingly. Honestly, we're much better off without her. Ginny's lip trembled. Stuff like this doesn't often happen at Hogwarts, Ron assured her. They'll catch the nut who did it and have him out of here in no time. I just hope he's got time to petrify Filch before he's expelled. I'm only joking, Ron added hastily as Ginny blanched. The attack had also had an effect on Hermione. It was quite usual for Hermione to spend a lot of time reading, but she was now doing almost nothing else. Nor could Harry and Ron get much response from her when they asked what she was up to, and not until the following Wednesday did they find out. Harry had been held back in potions, where Snape had made him stay behind to scrape tube worms off the desk. After a hurried lunch, he went... Tube worms? Again. 2 words. Tube, worm. Make something out of it. After a hurried lunch, he went upstairs to meet Ron in the library and saw Justin Finch-Fletchley, the Hufflepuff boy from herbology, coming towards him. Harry had just opened his mouth to say hello when Justin caught sight of him, turned abruptly, and sped off in the opposite direction. Who was Finch-Fletchley again? I didn't do his voice yet, did I? I can't remember. So many different kids. I don't think so. Harry found Ron at the back of the library. What's on John's face? It's a scar! It's a scar! I'm like Harry Potter. I am Harry Potter. Harry found Ron at the back of the library, measuring his history of magic homework. Professor Binns had asked for a 3-foot-long composition on the medieval assembly of European wizards. I don't believe it. I'm still 8 inches short, said Ron furiously, letting go of his parchment, which sprang back into a roll. And Hermione's done 4 feet 7 inches, and her writing's tiny. Where is she? Asked Harry, grabbing the tape measure and unrolling his own homework. Somewhere over there, said Ron, pointing along the shelves. Looking for another book? I think she's trying to read the whole library before Christmas. Harry told Ron about Justin Finch-Fletchley running away from him. Don't know why you care. I thought he was a bit of an idiot, said Ron, scribbling away, making his writing as large as possible. All that rubbish about Lockhart being so great? Hermione emerged from between the bookshelves. She looked irritable, and at last seemed ready to talk to them. All the copies of Hogwarts history have been taken out, she said, sitting down next to Harry and Ron. And there's a 2-week waiting list. I wish I hadn't left my copy at home, but I couldn't fit it in my trunk with all the Lockhart books. Why do you want it? Said Harry. The same reason everyone else wants it, said Hermione. To read up on the legend of the Chamber of Secrets. What's that? Said Harry quickly. That's just it. I can't remember, said Hermione, biting her lip. And I can't find the story anywhere else. Hermione, let me read your composition, said Ron. Hermione, let me read your composition, said Ron, desperately checking his watch. No, I won't, said Hermione, suddenly severe. You've had 10 days to finish it. I only need another 2 inches. Go on. The bell rang. Ron and Hermione led the way to History of Magic, bickering. Harry Potter. History of Magic was the dullest subject on their timetable. Professor Binns, who taught it, was their only ghost teacher, and the most exciting thing that ever happened in his classes was his entering the room through the blackboard. Ancient and shriveled, many people said he hadn't noticed he was dead. He had simply got up to teach one day and left his body behind him in an armchair in front of the staff room fire. His routine had not varied in the slightest since. So what does it matter if you're dead or alive in this world? What does it matter? What does anybody have any fear of dying? Today was as boring as ever. Professor Binns opened his notes and began to read in a flat drone like an old vacuum cleaner until nearly everyone in the class was in a deep stupor, occasionally coming around long enough to copy down a name or date, and then falling asleep again. That reminds me of university for me. I definitely fell asleep in the front row a number of times. He had speaking for half an hour when something happened that had never happened before. Hermione put up her hand. I didn't know Aslan is in Harry Potter. Nice, Toby. Professor Binns, glancing up in the middle of a deadly dull lecture on the International Warlock Convention of 1289, looked amazed. Dull like a vacuum cleaner.
Miss,
Granger, Professor, I was wondering if you could tell us anything about the Chamber of Secrets, said Hermione in a clear voice. Dean Thompson, who had been sitting with his mouth hanging open, gazing out of the window, jerked out of his trance. Lavender Brown's head came up off her arms, and Neville's elbow slipped his desk. Professor Binns blinked.
My subject is history of magic,
he said in a dry, wheezy voice.
Dry, wheezy. My subject is history of magic,
he said in his dry, wheezy voice.
I deal with facts, Miss Granger, not myths and legends.
He cleared his throat with a small noise like a chalk snapping, and continued.
In September of that year, a subcommittee of Sardinian sorcerers...
He stuttered to a halt. Hermione's hand was waving in the air again. Miss Grant? Oh, wait, who is this?
Miss Grant?
Please, sir, don't legends always have a basis in fact? Professor Binns was looking at her in such amazement. Harry was sure no student had ever interrupted him before, alive or dead.
Well,
said Professor Binns slowly.
Yes, one could argue that, I suppose.
He peered at Hermione, as though he had never seen a student properly before.
However, the legend of which you speak is such a very sensational, even ludicrous tale.
But the whole class was now hanging on Professor Binns' every word. He looked dimly at them all, every face turned to his. Harry could tell he was completely thrown by such an unusual show of interest.
Oh, very well,
he said slowly.
Let me see. The Chamber of Secrets. You all know, of course, that Hogwarts was founded over 1,000 years ago. The precise date is uncertain, by the 4 greatest witches and wizards of the age. The 4 schoolhouses are named after them. Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin. They built this castle together, far from prying Muggle eyes, for it was an age where magic was feared by common people, and witches and wizards suffered much persecution.
He paused, gazed blearily around the room, and continued.
For a few years, the founders worked in harmony together, seeking out youngsters who showed signs of magic and bringing them to a castle to be educated. But then the disagreements sprang up between them. A rift began to grow between Slytherin and the others. Slytherin wished to be more selective about the students admitted to Hogwarts. He believed that magical learning should be kept within all magic families. He disliked talking students of Muggle parentage, believing them to be untrustworthy. After a while, there was a serious argument on the subject between Slytherin and Gryffindor, and Slytherin left the school.
Professor Binns paused again, pursing his lips, looking like a wrinkled old tortoise.
Reliable historical sources tell us this much, he said, but these honest facts have been obscured by the fanciful legend of the Chamber of Secrets. The story goes that Slytherin had built a hidden chamber in the castle, of which the other founders knew nothing. Slytherin, according to the legend, sealed the Chamber of Secrets so that no one would be able to open it until his own true heir arrived at the school. The heir alone would be able to unseal the Chamber of Secrets, unleash the horror within, and use it to purge the school of all who were unworthy to study magic.
There was silence as he finished telling the story, but it wasn't the usual sleepy silence that filled Professor Binns' classes. Oh, gosh, I need some water after that. Ah! There was an unease in the air as everyone continued to watch him, hoping for more. Professor Binns looked faintly annoyed.
The whole thing is arrant nonsense, of course, he said. Naturally, the school has been searched for evidence of such a chamber, many times by the most learned witches and wizards. It does not exist. A tale told to frighten the gullible.
Hermione's hand was back in the air. Sir, what exactly do you mean by the horror within the chamber?
That is believed to be some sort of monster, which the heir of Slytherin alone can control,
said Professor Binns in his dry, reedy voice. The class exchanged nervous looks.
I tell you, the thing does not exist,
said Professor Binns, shuffling his notes.
There is no chamber and no monster.
But sir, said Seamus Finnegan, if the chamber can only be opened by Slytherin's true heir, no one else would be able to find it, would they?
Nonsense, O'Flaherty, said Professor Binns in an aggravated tone. If a long succession of Hogwarts headmasters and headmistresses hadn't found the thing...
Parvati Patil. But Professor, piped up Parvati Patil, you'd probably have to use dark magic to open it.
Just because a feather doesn't use dark magic doesn't mean he can't, Miss Pennyfeather,
snapped Professor Binns.
I repeat, if the likes of Dumbledore...
Dean Thomas. What was this kid again? I can't remember Dean Thomas. Yeah, give me some magics for Dean Thomas if you can remember them. But maybe you've got to be related to Slytherin, so Dumbledore couldn't, began Dean Thomas, but Professor Binns had had enough.
That will do, he said sharply. It is a myth. It does not exist. There is not a shred of evidence that Slytherin ever built so much as a secret broom cupboard. I regret telling you such a foolish story. We will return, if you please, to history, to solid, believable, verifiable fact.
And within 5 minutes, the class had sunk back into its usual torpor. I always knew... Oh, wait, who said this? I always knew Salazar Slytherin was a twisted old loony, Ron told Harry and Hermione, as they fought their way through the teeming corridors at the end of the lesson to drop off their bags before dinner. But I never thought he started all this pure blood stuff. I wouldn't be in his house if he paid me. Honestly, if the Sorting Hat had tried to put me in Slytherin, I'd have got the train straight back home. Hermione nodded fervently, but Harry didn't say anything. His stomach had just dropped unpleasantly. Harry had never told Ron and Hermione that the Sorting Hat had seriously considered putting him in Slytherin. He could remember, as though it was yesterday, the small voice that had spoken in his ears when he placed the hat on his head a year before. Okay, it's not shouty, constipated hat, but it's this guy.
You could be great, you know. It's all here in your head. And Slytherin would help you on the way to greatness. No doubt about that.
But Harry, who had already heard of Slytherin's house reputation for turning out dark wizards, had thought desperately, not Slytherin. And the hat had said,
oh, well, if you're sure, better be Gryffindor.
As they were shunted along in the throng, Colin Creevey went past. Oh, what was his voice? Hiya, Harry. Hello, Colin, said Harry automatically. Harry, a boy in my class has been saying you're... But Colin was so small he couldn't fight against the tide of people bearing him toward the Great Hall. They heard him squeak, see you soon, Harry! And he was gone. He was drifting away. What's a boy in his class saying about you? Hermione wondered. That I'm Slytherin's heir, I expect, said Harry, his stomach dropping another inch or so, as he suddenly remembered the way Justin Finch-Fletchley had run away from him at lunchtime. People here believe anything, said Ron in disgust. The crowd thinned, and they were able to climb the next staircase without difficulty. Do you really think there's a chamber of secrets? Ron asked Hermione. I don't know, she said, frowning. Dumbledore couldn't chew on Mrs. Norris, and that makes me think that whatever attacked her might not be, well, human. As she spoke, as she spoke, they turned a corner and found themselves at the end of the very corridor where the attack had happened. They stopped and looked. The scene was just as it had been that night, except that there was no stiff cat hanging from the torch bracket, and an empty chair stood against the wall, bearing the message, "The chamber has opened." "That's where Filch has been keeping guard," Ron muttered. They looked at each other. The corridor was deserted. "Can't have a hurt to poke around," said Harry, dropping his bag and getting to his hands and knees so that he could crawl along, searching for clues. "Scorch marks," he said. "Here and here. Come and look at this. Come and look at this," said Hermione. "This is funny." Harry got up and crossed to the window next to the message on the wall. "Hey, Eric." Hermione was pointing at the topmost pane, where around 20 spiders were scuttling, apparently fighting to get through a small crack in the glass. A long silvery thread was dangling like a rope, as though they had all climbed it in their hurry to get outside. "Have you ever seen spiders act like that?" said Hermione wonderingly. "No," said Harry. "Have you, Ron?" "Ron?" He looked over his shoulder. Ron was standing well back and seemed to be fighting the impulse to run. "What's up?" said Harry. I don't like spiders," said Ron tensely. "I never knew that," said Hermione, looking at Ron in surprise. "You've used spiders in potions loads of times." "I don't mind them dead," said Ron, who was carefully looking anywhere but at the window. "I just don't like the way they move." Hermione giggled. That's how she laughs. Like a little witch that she is. Requesting an Aussie student. Yes, we got Lee Richards. He's going to be Aussie. Okay. "It's not funny," said Ron fiercely. "You must know, when I was 3, Fred turned my teddy bear into a dirty great spider because I broke his toy broomstick. You wouldn't like it either if you had been holding your bear and suddenly it had too many legs and..." He broke off, shuddering. Hermione was obviously still trying not to laugh. Okay, I gotta stop that. Feeling that they had better get off the subject. Harry said, "Remember all that water on the floor? Where did that come from? Someone's mopped it up." "It was about here," said Ron, recovering himself to walk a few paces past Filch's chair and pointing. "Level with this door." He reached for the brass doorknob, but suddenly withdrew his hand as though he'd been burned. "What's the matter?" said Harry. "Can't go in there," said Ron gruffly. "That's a girl's toilet." Who's saying this? Hermione. "Oh, Ron, there won't be anyone in there," said Hermione, standing up and coming over. "That's Moaning Myrtle's place. Come on, let's have a look." And ignoring the large out-of-order sign, she opened the door. It was the gloomiest, most depressing bathroom Harry had ever set foot in. Under a large, cracked and spotted mirror were a row of chipped stone sinks. The floor was damp and reflected the dull light given off by the stubs of a few candles, burning low in their holders. The wooden doors to the cubicles were flaking and scratched, and one of them was dangling off its hinges. Hermione put her fingers to her lips and set off towards the end cubicle. When she had reached it, she said, "Hello, Myrtle. How are you?" Harry and Ron went to look. Moaning Myrtle was floating on the cistern of the toilet, picking a spot on her chin. Oh, what was her voice again? She's just like so depressed. And somebody said like moany and like pouted lips kind of thing. "This is the girls' bathroom," she said, eyeing Ron and Harry suspiciously. "They're not girls." "No," Hermione agreed. "I just wanted to show them how, nice it is in here." She waved vaguely at the dirty old mirror and the damp floor. "Ask her if she saw anything," Harry mouthed at Hermione. "What are you whispering?" said Myrtle. Staring back at him. "Nothing," said Harry quickly. "We wanted to ask..." "I wish people would stop talking behind my back," said Myrtle, in a voice choked with tears. "I do have feelings, you know, even if I am dead." "Myrtle, no one wants to upset you," said Hermione. "Harry only..." "No one wants to upset me, that's a good one." I'm gonna do that better. Harold Myrtle. "My life was nothing but misery at this place, and now people come along ruining my death." I don't know if that's any good. It's good? Okay, good. We wanted to ask you if you'd seen anything funny lately, said Hermione quickly, because a cat was attacked right outside your front door on Halloween. Did you see anyone near here that night? Said Harry.
I wasn't paying attention,
said Myrtle dramatically.
Peas upset me so much I came in here and tried to kill myself.
Whoa.
Then, of course, I remembered that I'm...
Already dead? Said Ron helpfully. Kids reading this book are like, Mom, Dad, do people kill themselves? This is a discussion point for sure for some kids. Myrtle gave a tragic sob, rose up in the air, turned over, and dived headfirst into the toilet, splashing water all over them and vanishing from sight. She has really no regard for how she comes across.
I'm just going to disappear in this toilet.
From the direction of her muffled sobs, she had come to rest somewhere in the U-bend. Harry and Ron stood with their mouths open, but Hermione shrugged wearily and said, Honestly, that was almost cheerful for Myrtle. Come on, let's go. Harry had barely closed the door on Myrtle's gurgling sobs when a loud voice made all three of them jump. Ron! Oh, Percy. Percy Weasley had stopped dead at the head of the stairs, prefect badge agleam, an expression of complete shock on his face. That's a girl's bathroom, he gasped. What were you... Just having a look around. Good first answer, Ron. Really good choice of words. Ron shrugged. Clues, you know? Percy swelled in a manner that reminded Harry forcefully of Mrs. Weasley. Get away from there, he said, striding towards them and starting to chivvy them along, flapping his arms. Don't you care what this looks like? Coming back here while everyone's at dinner. Why shouldn't we be here? Said Ron hotly, stopping short and glaring at Percy. Listen, we never laid a finger on that cat. That's what I told Ginny, said Percy fiercely. But she still seems to think you're going to be expelled. I've never seen her so upset, crying her eyes out. You might think of her. All the first years are thoroughly overexcited by this business. You don't care about Ginny, said Ron, whose ears were reddening now. You're just worried I'm going to mess up your chances of being head boy. 5 points from Gryffindor, Percy said tersely, fingering his prefect badge. And I hope it teaches you a lesson. No more detective work, or I'll write to Mum. And he strode off, the back of his neck as red as Ron's ears. Real tough, Percy. Harry and Ron and Hermione chose seats as far as possible from Percy in the common room that night. Ron was still in a very bad temper and kept blotting his charms homework. When he reached absently for his wand to remove the smudges, it ignited the parchment. Fuming almost as much as his homework, Ron slammed the Standard Book of Spells Grade 2 shut. To Harry's surprise, Hermione followed suit. Who could it be, though? She said in a quiet voice, as though continuing a conversation they had just been having. Who'd want all the squibs and muggleborns out of Hogwarts? Let's think, said Ron in a mock puzzlement. Who do we know who thinks muggleborns are scum? He looked at Hermione. Hermione looked back, unconvinced. If you're talking about Malfoy... Of course I am, said Ron. You heard him. You'll be next, mudbloods. Come on. You've only got to look at his foul rat face to know it's him. Malfoy, the heir of Slytherin, said Hermione skeptically. Look at his family, said Harry, closing his books too. The whole lot of them have been in Slytherin. He's always boasting about it. They could easily be Slytherin's descendants. His father's definitely evil enough. They could have had the key to the Chamber of Secrets for centuries, said Ron, handing it down, father to son. Well, said Hermione cautiously, I suppose it's possible. But how do we prove it, said Harry darkly. There might be a way, said Hermione slowly, dropping her voice still further with a quick glance across the room at Percy. Of course, it would be difficult and dangerous, Very dangerous. We'd be breaking about 50 school rules, I expect. If in a month or so you feel like explaining, you will let us know, won't you? Said Ron irritably. All right, said Hermione coldly. What we'd need to do is to get inside the Slytherin common room and ask Malfoy a few questions without him realizing it's us. But that's not possible, Harry said, as Ron laughed. No, it's not, said Hermione. All we'd need would be some polyjuice potion. What's that? What's what? Said Ron and Harry together. Snape mentioned it in class a few weeks ago. Do you think we've got nothing better to do in potions than listen to Snape? Muttered Ron. It transforms you into somebody else. Think about it. We could change into 3 of the Slytherins. No one would know it was us. Malfoy would probably tell us anything. He's probably boasting about it in the Slytherin common room right now. If only we could hear him. This polyjuice stuff sounds a bit dodgy to me, said Ron, frowning. What if we're stuck looking like 3 of the Slytherins forever? It wears off after a while, said Hermione, waving her hand impatiently. But getting hold of the recipe will be very difficult. Snape said it was in a book called Mosti Potenti Potions, and it's bound to be in the restricted section of the library. There was only one way to get out a book from the restricted section. You needed a signed note of permission from a teacher. Hard to see why we'd want the book, really, said Ron. If we weren't going to try and make one of the potions. I think, said Hermione, that if we made it sound as though we were just interested in the theory, we might stand a chance. Oh, come on. No teacher's going to fall for that, said Ron. It'd have to be really thick. I don't know who they're going to ask. Who are they going to ask? Oh, of course. What's his name? Lansworn Foghorn or something like that.
What?
What's his name again?
Lockhart.
Lockhart, right.
Foghorn.
Lansworn Foghorn. Okay. Oh. So they're 12 years old right now. 12 years old. They're starting to become teenagers. So I wonder if there's like stuff at Hogwarts they can like that is going to be like cool, like wizard cool, like it was in high school. Like this dude's got a cool cape. What kind of things did you think was cool when you were a kid? That's definitely not cool. Like what kind I write some stuff down there. I want to Beyblades, yeah. Okay, chapter 10. The Rogue Bludger. Since the disastrous episode of... Hey, where's Dexter? There he is. I've been holding the book in front of him the whole time, haven't I? You want a good look at Dexy? There we go. The Rogue Bludger. Since the disastrous episode of the Pixies, Professor Lockhart had not brought live creatures to class. Instead, he read passages from his books to them, and sometimes reenacted some of the more dramatic bits. He usually picked Harry to help him with these reconstructions. So far, Harry had been forced to play a simple Transylvanian villager whom Lockhart had cured of a babbling curse, a yeti with a head cold, and a vampire who had been unable to eat anything except lettuce since Lockhart had dealt with him. Yeah, pogs, my gosh. Harry was hauled to the front of the class during their very next offense against the dark arts lesson, this time acting a werewolf. If he hadn't had a very good reason for keeping Lockhart in a good mood, he would have refused to do it. Nice loud howl, Harry. Exactly. And then, if you will believe it, I pounced like this. Slammed him to the floor. Thus, with one hand, I managed to hold him down. With my other, I put my wand to his throat. I then screwed up my remaining strength and performed the immensely complex homorphous charm. He let out a piteous moan. Go on, Harry. Woo. Higher than that. Woo. Good. The fur vanished, the fangs shrank, and he turned back into a man. Simple, yet effective. And another villager will remember me forever as the hero who delivered them from the monthly terror of werewolf attacks. The bell rang and Lockhart got up to his feet. Homework. Compose a poem about my defeat of the Wagga Wagga werewolf. He's so stupid. Signed copies of Magical Me to the author of the best one. The class began to leave. Harry returned to the back of the room, where Ron and Hermione were waiting. "Ready?" Harry muttered. "Wait till everyone's gone," said Hermione nervously. "All right." She approached Lockhart's desk, a piece of paper clutched tightly in her hand, Harry and Ron behind her. Professor Lockhart," Hermione stammered, "I wanted to get this book out of the library, just for background reading." She held out the piece of paper, her hand shaking slightly. "But the thing is, it's in the restricted section of the library, so I need a teacher to sign for it. I'm sure it would help me understand what you say in Gadding with Ghouls about slow-acting venoms."
"Ah, Gadding with Ghouls," said Lockhart, taking the note from Hermione and smiling wildly at her. "Possibly my very favorite book. You enjoyed it?"
"Oh, yes," said Hermione eagerly. "So clever. The way you trapped that last one with a tea strainer."
"Well, I'm sure no one will mind me giving the best student in the year a little extra help," said Lockhart warmly, and he pulled out an enormous peacock quill. "Yes, nice, isn't it?"
That's so dumb. He's like, "Wow." He said, misreading the revolted look on Ron's face. That's another layer. Great joke. He's just completely misreading it.
"I usually save it for book signings."
This guy is my favorite character right now. He scrawled an enormous loopy signature on the note and handed it back to Hermione.
"So, Harry,"
said Lockhart, while Hermione folded the note with fumbling fingers and slipped it into her bag.
"tomorrow's the first Quidditch match of the season, I believe. Gryffindor against Slytherin, is it not? I hear you're a useful player. I was a seeker too. I was asked to try for the national squad, but preferred to dedicate my life to the eradication of the dark forces. Still, if ever you feel the need for a little private training, don't hesitate to ask. Always happy to pass on my expertise to less able players."
Harry made an indistinct noise in his throat and then hurried off after Ron and Hermione. "I don't believe it," he said as the three of them examined the signature on the note. "He didn't even look at the book we wanted."
"That's because he's a brainless git," said Ron.
"But who cares? We've got what we needed." "He's not a brainless git," said Hermione shrilly as they half ran towards the library. "Just because he said you were the best student in the year." They dropped their voices as they entered the muffled stillness of the library. Madame Pince, the librarian, was a thin, irritable woman who looked like an underfed vulture. Okay, that's a good description. Most of the tender potions," she repeated suspiciously, trying to take the note from Hermione, but Hermione wouldn't let go. I was wondering if I could keep it," she said breathlessly. "Oh, come on," said Ron, wrenching it from her grasp and thrusting it at Madame Pince. We'll get you another autograph. Lockhart will sign anything if it stands still long enough." Madame Pince held the note up to the light, as though determined to detect a forgery, but it passed the test. She stalked away between the lofty shelves and returned several minutes later, carrying a large and moldy-looking book. Hermione put it carefully into her bag, and they left, trying not to walk too quickly or look too guilty. 5 minutes later, they were barricaded in Moaning Myrtle's out-of-order bathroom once again. Hermione had overridden Ron's objections by pointing out that it was the last place anyone in their right minds would go, so they were guaranteed some privacy. Moaning Myrtle was crying noisily in her cubicle. That sounds like the owl. To find a different cry for her, because the owl, that voice is staying. I'm sorry, but that voice is staying for Hedwig. But they were ignoring her, and she them. Hermione opened Most Potenta Potions. That's also such a stupid and funny joke. Just adding an E at the end. Most Potenta Potions. An Italian wrote this book, obviously. Carefully, the three of them bent over the damp spotted pages. It was clear from a glance why it belonged in the restricted section. Some of the potions had effects almost too gruesome to think about. And there were some very unpleasant illustrations, which included a man who seemed to have been turned inside out, and a witch sprouting several extra pair of arms out of her head. Yikes. What are they, Vikings? Here it is, said Hermione excitedly, as she found the page headed The Polyjuice Potion. It was decorated with drawings of people halfway through transforming into other people. Harry sincerely hoped the artist had imagined the looks of intense pain on their faces. This is the most complicated potion I've ever seen, said Hermione as they scanned the recipe. Lacewing flies, leeches, flaxweed and nutgrass, she murmured, running her fingers down the list of ingredients. Well, they're easy enough. They're in the student store cupboard, but we can help ourselves. Oh, look! Powdered horn of a bicorn. Don't know where we're going to get that. Shredded skin of a boomslang? Well, that'll be tricky too. And of course, a bit of whoever we want to change into. Excuse me? Said Ron sharply. What do you mean, a bit of whoever we're changing into? I'm drinking nothing with Crabbe's toenails in it. Hermione continued as though she hadn't heard him. We don't have to worry about that yet, though, because we add those bits last. Ron turned, speechless, to Harry, who had another worry. Who's saying this? Harry. Do you realize how much we're going to have to steal, Hermione? Shredded skin of boomslang? That's definitely not in the student's cupboard. What are we going to do? Break into Snape's private stores? I don't know if this is a good idea. Hermione shut the book with a snap. Well, if you two are going to chicken out, fine, she said. Hermione is pushing to break the rules? What is going on in the world? She has changed. She has changed. There were bright pink patches on her cheeks, and her eyes were brighter than usual. I don't want to break rules, you know. I think threatening Muggleborns is far worse than brewing up a difficult potion. But if you don't want to find out it's Malfoy, I'll go straight to Madame Pince now and hand the book back in. I never thought I'd see the day when you'd be persuading us to break rules, said Ron. All right, we'll do it, but not toenails, okay? How long will it take to make anyway, said Harry, as Hermione, looking happier, opened the book again. Well, as the flaxweed has got to be picked at the full moon, and the lacewings have got to be stewed for 21 days, I'd say it'd be ready in about a month, if we can get all the ingredients. A month, said Ron. Malfoy could have attacked half the Muggleborns in the school by then. But Hermione's eyes narrowed dangerously close again, and he added swiftly, but it's the best plan we've got, so full steam ahead, I say. However, while Hermione was checking the coast was clear for them to leave the bathroom, Ron muttered to Harry, it'll be a lot less hassle if we can just knock Malfoy off his broom tomorrow. A month. Yeah, a full month. Harry woke early on Saturday morning and lay for a while thinking about the coming Quidditch match. He was nervous, mainly at the thought of what Wood would say if Gryffindor lost, but also at the idea of facing a team mounted on the fastest racing brooms gold could buy. He had never wanted to beat Slytherin so badly. After half an hour of lying there with his insides churning, he got up, dressed, and went down to breakfast early, where he found the rest of the Gryffindor team huddled at the long, empty table, all looking uptight and not speaking much. As 11 o'clock approached, the whole school started to make its way down the Quidditch stadium. It was a muggy sort of day with a hint of thunder in the air. Ron and Hermione came hurrying over to wish Harry good luck as he entered the changing rooms. The team pulled on their scarlet Gryffindor robes, then sat down to listen to Wood's usual pre-match pep talk. Slytherin have better brooms than us, he began. No point denying it. But we've got better people on our brooms. We've trained harder than they have. We've been flying in all weathers. Too true, muttered George Weasley. I have been properly dry since August. And we're going to make them rue the day they let that little bit of slime, Malfoy, buy his way onto their team. Chest heaving with emotion, Wood turned to Harry. It'll be down to you, Harry, to show them that a seeker has to have something more than a rich father. Get to that snitch before Malfoy, or die trying, Harry. Because we've got to win today. We've got to. So no pressure, Harry, said Fred, winking at him. As they walked out onto the pitch, a roar of noise greeted them, mainly cheers, because Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff were anxious to see Slytherin beaten. But the Slytherins in the crowd made their boos and hisses heard too. Madame Hooch, that name, Madam Hooch, the Quidditch teacher, asked Flint and Wood to shake hands, which they did, giving each other threatening stares and gripping rather harder than was necessary. "On my whistle," said Madam Hooch. 3, 2, 1. With a roar from the crowd to speed them upwards, the 14 players rose towards the leaden sky. Harry flew higher than any of them, squinting around for the snitch. Malfoy. "All right there, Scarhead," yelled Malfoy, shooting underneath him as though to show off the speed of his broom. Harry had no time to reply. At that very moment, a heavy black bludger came pelting towards him. He avoided so narrowly that he felt it ruffle his hair as it passed. "Close one, Harry," said George, streaking past him with his club in his hand, ready to knock the bludger back towards the Slytherin. Harry saw George give the bludger a powerful whack in the direction of Adrian Pusey, but the bludger changed direction in mid-air and shot straight for Harry again. Harry dropped quickly to avoid it, and George managed to hit it hard towards Malfoy. Once again, the bludger swerved like a boomerang and shot at Harry's head. Yeah, very stressful and dangerous for these children. Harry put on a burst of speed and zoomed toward the other end of the pitch. He could hear the bludger whistling along behind him. What was going on? Bludgers never concentrated on one player like this. It was their job to try and unseat as many people as possible. Fred Weasley was waiting for the bludger at the other end. Harry ducked as Fred swung at the bludger with all his might. The bludger was knocked off course. "That's done it!" Fred yelled happily, but he was wrong. As though it was magnetically attracted towards Harry, the bludger pelted after him once more, and Harry was forced to fly off at full speed. It had started to rain. Harry felt heavy drops fall onto his face, splattering onto his glasses. He didn't have a clue what was going on in the rest of the game, until he heard Lee Jordan, who was commenting, say, what is he again?
He's got to be Australian, you said.
Yeah. Slytherin lead, 60 points to 0. Slytherin lead, 60 points to 0. The Slytherin's superior brains were clearly doing their jobs. And meanwhile, brooms, not brains. And meanwhile, the mad bludger was doing all it could to knock Harry out of the air. Fred and George were now flying so close to him on either side that Harry could see nothing at all, except their flailing arms, and had no chance to look for the snitch, let alone catch it. "Someone's tampered with this bludger," Fred grunted, swinging his bat with all his might as it launched a new attack on Harry. "We need time out," said George, trying to signal to Wood, and to stop the bludger breaking Harry's nose at the same time. Wood had obviously got the message. Madam Hooch's whistle rang out, and Harry, Fred, and George dived for the ground, still trying to avoid the mad bludger. "What's going on?" said Wood, as the Gryffindor team huddled together, while Slytherin in the crowd jeered. "We're being flattened. Fred, George, where were you when that bludger stopped Angelina scoring?" "We were 20 feet above her, stopping the other bludger murdering Harry, Oliver," said George angrily. "Someone's fixed it. It won't leave Harry alone. It hasn't gone for anyone else all game. The Slytherins must have done something to it." But the bludgers have been locked in Madam Hooch's office since our last practice, and there was nothing wrong with them then," said Wood anxiously. Madam Hooch was walking towards them. Over her shoulder, Harry could see the Slytherin team jeering and pointing in his direction. "Listen," said Harry, as she came nearer and nearer. "With you two flying around me all the time, the only way I'm going to catch the snitch is if it flies up my sleeve," said Harry. "Go back to the rest of the team and let me deal with the rogue one." "Don't be thick," said Harry. "It'll take your head off." Wood was looking from Harry to the Weasleys. Okay, I'll stop there. Also in the middle. Time for interaction. Not enough Hagrid in this book. I know. Not enough Hagrid voice. I love Hagrid. Every time he pops up, I'm like, yes, I get to do his voice. I get to read him. Yeah. I love his yells so much. It's so good. Who here? Who has read the book the most times here? I'm interested about that. How many times have you read it, Mark?
I have read this one once.
Oh, okay. Which book have you read the most?
I haven't read all of them. I've only read the first 4 once.
But you've seen the movies.
But I've seen all the movies, yeah.
Oh, crazy. You haven't read the last ones. Oh, crazy. Hi, Ellie. Lockhart is our constellation. Yeah, him and Haggard, those are the two most funnest voices to do, for sure. Answer all my questions in the Haggard voice. Okay. 6 times. That's a lot. I've read the 5th one the most. 6 times, that's the most. 8 times. Zaynep has read it them 8 times. This is your 9th, I guess. 7 times. Kaylee. Whoa! Okay, when I was younger. I've read all of them years ago. Quite a number of times.
13 times.
What? Okay, get out of here. 13 times? Whoa! That's a lot. Who is that? The Night Owl Nerd. Good name. Oh, man, that's crazy. Oh, so Danielle, you already know what's coming up then. You already know the different words that are coming up back to back when I made them magical 6 times. So people, hey, man. People have read these, people from 6 to 13 times. Apparently, people cannot read them less than 6 times. I haven't, but I will set up something, actually. I will. Why not? I'll try to do it tomorrow or the day after. 1 reread every year. And so it doesn't get boring for you, Night Owl Nerd? I mean, I feel like anything would get boring for me 13 times, but you let me know. I'm not telling you it should be boring for you. Oh, that's crazy. 13 times. Are these books that corrupt children? Yeah, Norm. These are the books. There's so many witches and wizards running around, putting dark magic on everybody. Okay, make sure to applaud your healthcare workers wherever you're at. Here in Canada, in Vancouver, it's at 7 o'clock. I don't know where you're tuning in from, but I'm sure they're doing it there too. Please applaud them. Go follow Mark at, what is it again? yoc.creations. Go to Cave Cannon Productions is my production company. Check out the music video we've done there. Today I was a bit tireder. Today was a tired day for me. I'm hoping to get more energy for tomorrow, get some better sleep. Again, I appreciate all the nice messages people are writing me. It makes me feel good and motivates me to read more, which I already am, because I want to know what happens, and I'm really, really starting to love the characters a lot. Getting to know them better. Really enjoying them. Have you ever read a book more than once? Oh, kitten. That's so funny. I love the music in the background. What's it called? Type in Harry Potter Chill. And this is, I think, the 2nd or 3rd thing that pops up. It's called Harry Potter Music and Ambience, Dumbledore's Office. Was the Philosopher's Stone the first time you read a book? Yeah, and it's obvious, isn't it? You watch the movies every Halloween. So you've watched, since they've come out? No, since you've been together? How many times have you watched that, Josh? Take care of your voice. We need you. Yeah, my voice feels fine, actually. I'm speaking from my diaphragm. I'm classically trained, so I know how to bring the voice up from the diaphragm out to the mouth, to the masses, to the hoi polloi.
It also means you're incapable of shutting up.
Okay, everybody. I got 2 minutes remaining. If you want to still chat, we can. I don't have anything to say. I've got nothing to say to you. Film marathon every summer and every winter. Wait, so, whoa! You watch them every summer and every winter? How do you do that? I feel like I couldn't watch a movie that many times. It would drive me crazy. Thanks, Sarah. Hope you're doing well. Hope your baby is doing well. 6 times the magic number. So you've watched it 6 times. That's, oh man, you must like know all the bits off by heart and what happens. I saw this crazy video of this guy having Peter Pan on his phone facing in the direction of the camera, and he could describe every single action, every single line that happened along the way. Like, he's watched it so many times. It's so nuts. It's crazy. Yes, because magic, John. Yeah. They play the movies on TV a lot around Christmas times. Thanks, Nathan. Looking forward to this too. We are crazy about the books and movies. Yeah, you are. Okay, I got about 40 seconds remaining. Don't forget to applaud your healthcare workers. Stay inside. Don't go anywhere. Enjoy. Try to get some variation to your days. Thanks. Looking forward to tomorrow. Bye-bye.